So he then said he had no use for Ava anymore and was going to shoot Ava. But Ethan jumped in front of Ava, and Ethan ended up getting shot in the ass. But Ava had to play ass doctor with Ethan to try and stop the bleeding in his ass, which didn't seem like she did a good job. What up, General Hospital viewers? Gonna talk about the last week of this show, June 29th to July 3rd. Lately I have been struggle watching General Hospital. I just feel like the writing really went off the rails with all of the plot driven, though we did have a very action-packed week, so it was something. It was certainly not boring. However, I also can't say I was totally invested in all of the action. A lot of people had guns drawn on them this week, but the only person I cared about having a gun drawn on them was Ava, to be honest. But let's talk about some of all of the things that happened on General Hospital over this past week, at least the ones I want to talk about. We had Fitzpatrick and Justine talking about Willow being on the road that night. There was never really any follow-up on that this week, which is probably a good thing. I still don't understand how Brooklyn's setting up Willow to be on the road that night, doing what she did when no crime was committed. Don't really know how that works. Sonny and Alexis were talking about Cullum being dirty and how Jason knew. I think that's probably going to be one of the next things to happen, is Jason getting out and back in Port Charles over the next month, I would assume. But some of the drama this week, actually most of the drama this week, revolved around Cassius and Cullum, who talked about their Sidwell problem, because Sidwell has been on the loose lately, and he was definitely off the rails, kind of just doing whatever. I don't really know if Sidwell even had a game plan, but for someone who they built up to be so in control of everything on this show, the fact that Sidwell was so out of control over these past few weeks really just spoke to how far his character has fallen, I suppose. Meanwhile, in France, Anna had told Felisa that Nathan wasn't Nathan, and Emma and Mac were talking about Anna, hoping that she can come back home despite some of her mental health issues. And at first, Felicia seemed to be playing into those mental health issues of Anna, maybe not fully believing her regarding this whole Nathan thing. But eventually she did believe Anna, and she called Cody to keep James away from Nathan, which we will get to. Meanwhile, Cullum wanted Cassius to kill Sidwell because Sidwell's grief made him a liability, and Sidwell was certainly acting like a liability. But Fitzpatrick was with Cassius on this stakeout, trying to find Sidwell. They talked about how Britt was being brought back from the Virgin Islands, and also talked about Britt having saline in her syringe, which would not help her with her Huntington's that she supposedly had. As they were staking out Ezra, that they did end up finding Sidwell. So Fitzpatrick busted in on Sidwell, guns drawn, but Cassius was there too, so Sidwell told Cassius to shoot Fitzpatrick. Everyone was confused with Sidwell revealing this, that Nathan West is not Nathan. In fact, it's his twin Cassius. While Cassius said he was sorry and that he needed Fitzpatrick to drop his gun, so he pointed the gun at Fitzpatrick, eventually smacking him in the face with the gun, pistol whipping him. But Cassius didn't love that his cover was blown by Sidwell. He did threaten to kill Sidwell, but he didn't, of course. Both Cassius and Sidwell end up leaving. Ezra could have left too, but he's had a conscience lately, so he decided to stay and tend to Fitzpatrick and try and wake him up and call an ambulance. Meanwhile, like I said, Felicia did call Cody to tell him that Nathan is not really Nathan, so keep Nathan away from Nathan's son. But Cody's phone conveniently wasn't working as he was helping James with baseball. Cassius did show up, and eventually Cody did get his phone to start working again, or at least the reception for his cell phone. And so the message came in from Felicia to keep Nathan away from James. James and Nathan, aka Cassius, were about to go get ice cream, but Cody did a good job of stopping that. Cassius had to admit to James that he made a big mistake and he may not be able to fix it, so he has to go. And it seemed like Cassius was going to leave town. That did not end up happening, which we will get into. Felicia thanked Anna for being right when the news of fake Nathan supposedly leaving town came back. And it seems like Anna's doing better and maybe going to be coming back home to Port Charles. Sure hope so, even if she's not on a lot. It's about time for the Anna story to wrap up. Sidwell ended up showing up at Ava's, though, while Justine and Ethan were there, and Ethan was not a good bodyguard at first here, because by the time Ethan pulled out his gun, Sidwell long had a gun pulled out on them. It seemed like Sidwell was coming for Ava, but that was not who he was coming from, because Sidwell's plan was to set up Sonny, and to do that, he needed to take Justine, because Justine and Sonny had gotten so close. So he then said he had no use for Ava anymore and was going to shoot Ava. But Ethan jumped in front of Ava, and Ethan ended up getting shot in the ass. And they went to go hide together from Sidwell, who still had a gun, and just leaving Justine by herself with him. But Ava had to play ass doctor with Ethan to try and stop the bleeding in his ass, which he didn't seem like she did a good job. Yeah, because Ethan just kept passing out. I don't know if they were testing Ava and Ethan, getting closer here. It seemed like they could have been. And I don't know if I hate it. Anything to give Ava a real storyline would be great with me. But while she was tending to Ethan's shot up ass, Sidwell was with Justine, made her call Sonny. So Sidwell was threatening to hurt Justine. So Sonny ended up arriving to see Sidwell and Justine together. Sidwell's whole plan is that he thinks Sonny can help him escape. The only good thing to come out of these scenes was that Sonny finally told Sidwell that Cullum killed Marco, but we got really zero payoff to that, which I've been complaining about for months, and I still feel that way, because why were they keeping this info from Sidwell in the first place? Never made sense. Anyway, Sonny and Sidwell ended up in a fight. Sonny got the advantage. Justine did not want Sonny to shoot and kill Sidwell, and Justine was able to stop Sonny from doing so and have Sidwell arrested instead. So that was one villain down this week in a string of villains that went down this week. Cullum made his way to Jack Brennan, wanting to tie up that loose end by killing Jack, and tried to kill him by putting this face mask on him that I guess was tied to a carbon monoxide tank, and it looked like it was going to get the job done. But luckily for Jack, eventually Nina came to visit him in his hospital room like she's been doing, got there in time to take the mask off of him, and so Jack survived that whole ordeal. That was one of many almost deaths that went down this week. Because, like I said, lots of action this week, lots of people almost dying, some, I guess, dying. Part of the story that I just, am not being able to be invested in is, I don't care about a lot of these characters dying or not. And then when you put in the whole Joss super WSB agent into it all, that's what kind of annoys me, because they had these scenes this week with Joss and Obrecht still being locked up, but Obrecht was already able to complete the prototype in very quick fashion. Took Britt forever, but Obrecht was able to finish it off. Charlotte, meanwhile, talked to Danny, because at the end of last week, he saved Charlotte from being kidnapped by a WSB agent that was probably going to abduct her. So they went to Carly, wanting to help Carly save Joss, and they ended up causing a distraction for Cullum, who was going to move the prototype that was made by Britt and Obrecht. And during that time, Carly went to Windermere hoping to find Joss. But before Danny and Charlotte could make a distraction, Carly, of course, was caught by Cullum, and she yelled at Cullum that everyone knows that he's dirty, but she doesn't really care right now, even though Valentine went to the WSB. Cullum doesn't think that Valentine will make it to the WSB. Carly just wanted to help her daughter, but Cullum said he's going to have them both killed. He left, wanted one of his goons to kill Carly. Carly tried to hit the guy with the fireplace poker, but that didn't help much. Luckily for Carly, though, Cassius decided to not leave town. He arrived back just in time to save Carly. And then Cassius ended up getting into this major shootout with Cullum and a bunch of goons, which was not smart because he was totally outnumbered. I did not think that was a great idea. And then Carly ended up finding Obrecht and Josh down in the room because they were messing with wiring, trying to get the door open again, which, of course, Obrecht was successful at doing because Obrecht can do everything, apparently, in quick fashion, too. So they were able to do that only for Joss to not want Carly to be in danger, wanting to go save Cassius. So Joss escaped and had Obrecht put the wires back together to lock the door and keep Carly and Obrecht down there locked up together. Joss ended up saving Cassius from being shot, but still, both of them were majorly outnumbered in this shootout. Joss ended up being shot herself. Cullum had the gun on both Cullum and Joss. Revealed that Britt never had a devastating disease. That was just a whole bluff, I guess, which... Another part of the story I don't like. Why not just give Britt that disease? Like, why did it all have to be fake? It just seems so very similar to Valentine's whole plot, where he was an escapee hiding out for months and months and months, and that story ends with him just turning himself back in. And then for months and months and months, Britt allegedly has this disease that's killing her, and that turns out to be fake. It's cop-out writing. It's not good writing. It's just so plot-heavy writing to me. But Cullum ends up shooting Cassius. Joss manages to get a gun and shoot and I guess kill Cullum. Don't love that Joss is the one that ends up killing Cullum. Don't love that Cullum dies before there can be some confrontation between Sidwell and Cullum. I just do feel like some of the payoffs to this story, they're not hitting great for me personally, because they could have done so much more. If they were going to kill off Marco, which they did, I don't feel like we got a good payoff to his death whatsoever. I really don't feel like we did. Then this helicopter arrived, a WSB helicopter, and John Oliver walks out of the helicopter. You know, months ago, like in the spring, I think he went on his show saying he wanted to be on a soap opera, where just an outlandish character. He's always wanted to be on a soap opera, I guess. Turns out he's going to be on two, and the first one is now General Hospital. He will be on Days of Our Lives later this summer, too. But he's playing on General Hospital this mysterious Z character, who I guess is the head of the WSB. As he arrived off his helicopter, he ended up shooting one of Cullum's goons, seeing Joss is still alive, saying he's there to help. Then the next episode at the hospital, Joss is in her hospital room. Carly wants to see her, but WSB agents are stopping Carly from seeing Joss. Because Z is in with Joss right now, asking about Cassius and Cullum. She wants to know if they're okay. Z says they're both dead. I assume that Cullum is actually dead. I'm not completely convinced that Cassius is dead, but I guess we'll find out. It seems like he is right now, because Z wants this debrief from Joss about exactly what happened. Joss talked about Cullum and Sidwell's plans and imprisoning Anna Devane, and then Cullum kidnapping Obrecht. They then discussed how this is going to look for the WSB, because Cullum is this major WSB agent, and he was plotting world demise, basically. So Joss is going to have to lie and say that this was all Cassius is doing and Cullum died a hero. Joss doesn't love that fact because Cassius did do the right thing at the end, but Joss says she would lie if she could get something in return, and in return, she wants a full release and all charges dropped against both Jason and Valentine, and it seems like she made a deal with Z. Z then tried to find Jack Brennan's black box in his office, but someone was demanding to see him. Turns out to be Carly demanding her daughter be out of the WSB. I don't know if that's going to change the plan that Joss tried to cut with Z, but in the preview, John Oliver said that he wanted to be slapped on a soap opera, and he's going to be slapped on this show, and I'm going to assume it's by Carly. So that can hurt this deal making as well. I do like that John Oliver is on the show because that's what he wanted to do, and I kind of like the character too, but it's the whole Z character, much like Britt not having Huntington's, much like Valentine's storyline wrapping up by him turning himself back in after hiding out successfully for so long. It's a cop out, and I feel like Z's just here to wrap everything up. But it is nice that we're, losing all these villains at once. Where do they go from here, losing all these villains at once? Who's the next main villain? Because this show loves a main villain. The only other thing in my notes is that Dante, Lulu, and Rocco returned to the news that Cullum had been killed in a shootout. Dante had to tell Rocco that he had Britt arrested, which of course upset Rocco. Rocco did not want that done. Britt was in jail, being questioned about her involvement in everything with Cullum and Sidwell. Obrecht ended up visiting Britt in jail. I don't know how Obrecht is not also arrested for finishing the project herself, but okay. I guess she was doing it while kidnapped, but still, there was threats made to Britt too. Dante and Lulu also found out that Nathan was the twin Cassius. That was a hard pill for both of them to swallow. And then Rocco and Danny had a run-in. Danny had to bring up the fact that Britt's been lying for Rocco about Jason shooting Cullum when Rocco is the one to pull the trigger, so that should be tension between Rocco and Danny, which is a nice little setup for the younger characters next week. And that was this week of General Hospital. Very action-packed. A lot did go down, so it was far from boring, but the plot-driven writing is just... It can be my cup of tea. It was my cup of tea in the spring. I mean, the writing was still plot-driven in the spring. But I just feel like everything went off the rails, and I don't love some of the payoffs we got right now with all of these villainous characters. And I like I said, they killed off Marco. No real payoff to that, in my opinion.